You will not need to emasculate him if you can meet your own needs. That's a loaded statement. Let's unpack that. If you are feeling insecure, if you are feeling unsafe, often as a result of that, you will need to critique others. You will need to abuse verbally, emotionally others. You will need to keep them at bay. You will need to keep yourself safe. You will need to defend yourself, protect your heart. And often this criticism can come up as emasculation. If you are still carrying a father wound, if you somewhere in your world have deemed the masculine representation or men to be completely unsafe, or one man to be unsafe that you've experienced abuse from or a neglect from, which is a form of abuse, of course, and somewhere in your being and in your body you made the decision that all men are unsafe, and one of the ways that you keep yourself safe, emotionally distant from men, but also keep yourself safe, is to be hypercritical of men, it will come across as emasculation. And if you can meet your own needs, if you can strengthen that energy that is directional, supportive, structured, protective within yourself, then that need to critique others will lessen. The way you see men will change. But if there is unresolved pain, if there is unresolved trauma around the masculine or around men, the truth of it is you will continue to keep men at bay. But here's the interesting thing. There's a part of you that yearns for that intimate connection. Not only because you experienced abuse from that when you were younger, but perhaps because with your sexual preference and sexual orientation and your preferences in relationship, you yearn for that intimacy from a man. Yet there's a part of you that has deemed intimacy and closeness to be completely unsafe. That vulnerability has led to damage, drama, pain, a very unhealthy experience. And so now you have conflicting belief systems, and the issue is that one is very known: I want to be in relationship and healthy relationship. I want a man that can do X, Y, and Z. And the other competing belief, which is unconscious and buried, is that men are unsafe. Intimacy is not safe. I need to protect myself. I need to defend. And sometimes the best defense is attack. Sometimes the best attack is defense. They go hand in hand. So you find yourself being hypercritical. You find yourself having all this anger within you being projected outwards. And maybe you're in a conversation and a man says something that under other circumstances wouldn't necessarily be that triggering or that painful. However, guess what? You feel threatened. And so the need to critique or be passive aggressive or control or manipulate or judge or push away becomes very strong. And so now your needs aren't met. What does that mean when your needs aren't met? It means that we are searching for happiness, for the goal that we have outside of ourselves. In other words, we're putting that power in someone else's hands. And when they can't meet our needs, whatever those needs may be, it may be I want to feel safe in my body. It may be I want to stop hating certain people. It may be I want greater success in my life. It may be I want to need a family. It may be I want to feel loved. But when we attach so much to these needs outside of us, there's an element of codependence. This core that's attached to, I can only feel this way if this person makes me feel this way, or if they behave in a particular way, which is very rigid, right? Very, very limiting, very myopic. And B is we are basically saying that we can't feel whole without someone else. That's a lot of pressure to put on someone else. It's a lot of pressure to put on self. And so now we're not able to meet our own needs. We don't believe in ourselves enough. Let's keep unpacking that. Low self-worth. Somewhere in your life, maybe over multiple occasions, chronic trauma, can be little t trauma, it doesn't have to be big T trauma, but over multiple times in your life, you've been shown or you've witnessed or you've made it to be true for yourself or you've made it mean that you're not enough, that you are unworthy. And the association of that in this context could be with men. It could be with your father. It could be with an older brother. It could be with an abuser. It could be with your first boyfriend or your second boyfriend. It could be a combination of these and more, where you couldn't trust men. You couldn't really lean into that male relationship dynamic. And now you can't meet your own needs, but you made a decision to meet your own needs, but there's this attachment to, but I also need men to meet my own needs because they never were able to. And there's a part of you that still wants them to be able to because that's human nature. We almost want what we can't have. And it's healthy for others to meet our needs in healthy ways. In healthy ways that are transparent and open and without need and without deep attachment and without conditions, which isn't the easiest thing to do, but that's part of growing into this human spirit, into this human thing that is us and evolving ourselves. So when we don't have our own needs met, when we don't trust ourselves and believe in our own sense of worthiness, well, guess what? We're angry, often unconsciously, at others for not being able to meet those needs. And so we hate on them and we project that hate on them. So how do we move out of critique and judgment and emasculation? And how do we move into being able to meet our own needs healthily and quote unquote balancing that with having others meet our own needs? Because that's why we're in relationship. We're in intimate relationship to have others meet our needs as well, not just us meet our own needs and them meet their own needs and us just cohabitating. I mean, that can exist, but that's more of a roommate style situation. It's very different. There's a break, it's not a break, there's more of a space in intimacy there. Like the intimacy that you're sharing isn't as quote unquote deep or as close. So what do? We need to do our anger work to experience reprieve, because we have this buildup of being angry at people for hurting us and angry at ourselves. We have to do our emotional release work, primal screaming, breath work, hitting pillows, releasing energy, moving it through our bodies. But before we can start there, we have to become embodied. We have to get accustomed to not living so neck up and being more in our body. That could mean just gentle movement, dancing, walking, exercising, just being in the body a little more without overcomplicating the movement. But we have to do our anger release work. Now, being witnessed in our anger can be very powerful for us. Because if we can be witnessed in our anger by a coach or a practitioner or a group of people that are not judging us, we're lifting the veil of shame. That shame acts as that big, big block to intimacy and closeness. So anger release is so important so that there's no need for criticism and there's no buildup of, I have to control what's happening outside of me. And the next thing that we can do is the inner self-voice, the negative self-talk. We have to temper that. We have to be aware of that first before we can change it or temper it. But we have to meet it with compassion and kindness, because that inner self-voice, that inner critic, is a protector. It's a protector of us. It seems like it's self-sabotaging, but it's not. It's protecting us from closeness and intimacy, that thing that we fear yet we want and need the most. And so being and playing with that inner voice, meeting that inner voice with compassion and love. I hear you, I see you, thank you for protecting me, and I don't need this voice anymore. What's an alternative? And you can take a new perspective on that, where you're beginning to not see everyone or everything as a threat. And then in relationship, the emasculation can come down, the criticism, the judgment can come down, the you're less than can come down, because your need for control is less. Your need to dominate because you've been dominated is less. You've forgiven the past because you've felt it. You've moved it through with your anger work, with your continuous exploration. And now there's a newfound sense of freedom. And in that, your heart begins to open. You begin to attract men in your life that can meet you in that heart space and that want to hold your heart in a really healthy way, and that see you and that love you and that care for you and that want to be close with you, and that don't want to hurt you or take advantage of you, because you're meeting your own needs in a way that you haven't before, and you're opening your heart in a way that you haven't before. Power and blessings to you. I'll see you soon.